My wife told me I wasn't a real man while I worked 16-hour shifts to fund her boutique. So I took back everything and left quietly. I'm a 33-year-old guy, and for most of my life, I believed love was about building something together, brick by brick, hand in hand. When I met Melissa, she was different. Not just beautiful. She had this fire in her. She talked about fashion like it was art, like every fabric and button carried a story. On our third date, she told me she wanted to open her own boutique someday. Not a chain store, something hers. I remember smiling and saying, "Then we'll make it happen." At the time, I was working full-time as a mechanic. Long hours, busted knuckles, grime under my fingernails. Not glamorous, but honest work. Melissa didn't care about that, or at least, that's what I thought. She'd sit on the shop floor with me at night while I fixed up side jobs, sketching out ideas for her store on a clipboard. We used to joke that we were co-founders of a dream.
Oh, some nights.
We'd stay up late planning every detail, the name, the color of the walls, the kind of clients she'd attract. I'd cook while she crunched numbers, and we'd fall asleep with her laptop still glowing on our laps. Those nights were some of the happiest I've known. Back then, I didn't care how many hours I worked. I just wanted her dream to come true, because I believed if I gave her everything, she'd be proud to build something with me. But looking back, I think the first warning signs were buried in those spreadsheets and sketches. Little things she said, small ways she pulled ahead while I thought we were walking side by side. I just didn't see it yet. It started with 1 extra shift a week, then 2. Then I was working 16-hour days. 6 days straight. Melissa needed capital for the boutique, and we didn't have family money or savings. So I stepped up, sold my motorcycle, the one thing I bought after saving for years, canceled the trip to visit my brother in Florida. I told myself, this is what husbands do. You invest in your partner's dreams. Melissa would kiss me goodbye at 5 a.m., still half asleep. "You're amazing," she'd mumble into the pillow, and I'd carry that like fuel all day. We finally secured the lease on a small storefront downtown. It needed work, floors, lighting, shelves, but it had potential. I remember pulling off drywall with my bare hands on Sundays while she directed things, pointing at Pinterest screenshots and saying, "No, that's not the vibe." She started ordering furniture, racks, signage, all high-end, designer mannequins that cost more than our mattress. When I hesitated at a $4,000 front display setup, she rolled her eyes and said, "You don't get branding." Still, I kept my mouth shut and worked harder. I even pulled from my emergency savings to cover an unexpected invoice for lighting at night. I'd crawl into bed, exhausted, hoping she'd rub my shoulders or ask about my day. But she was always on her phone, posting store updates or watching haul videos for inspiration. One night I said, "I feel like we haven't talked in days." She didn't look up, just said, "Babe, I'm swamped. Can we not do this right now?" And so I didn't. I thought the silence was temporary, that once the boutique opened, she'd come back to me. But I didn't realize I was already being left behind. The boutique launched on a warm Saturday morning. Melissa wore a cream blazer, heels that clicked like power, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. I stood beside her holding coffee and cables while she posed with influencers and cut a shiny ribbon. My name wasn't mentioned once in her speech, not even a quiet thank you. At first I brushed it off, told myself she was nervous, caught up in the moment. I convinced myself this was our win, but things shifted fast after the launch. Melissa started staying out later, networking dinners, she said. Always with women I'd never met, people who didn't follow her back on Instagram. She bought a new phone, changed her wardrobe, and got her nails done weekly. She began talking in a tone I didn't recognize. My brand, she'd say. My vision. My store. I'd come home late, dirty and drained from the garage, and she'd be sprawled across the couch in silk pajamas, watching vlogs on interior design. She barely looked up anymore. One night I walked in with takeout, and she barely glanced away from her phone. "Can you eat in the kitchen? I have a scent diffuser going for tomorrow's live stream." I stood there for a second too long. That's when she sighed and muttered under her breath, "God, you're so basic." I said, "What's that supposed to mean?" She looked me dead in the eye. "You're not ambitious. You fix cars? You wouldn't understand what it takes to grow a brand." That hit me like a tire iron to the chest. I'd been breaking my back so she could chase this dream. Skipping meals. Ignoring pain. Selling my bike. Losing sleep, and now I wasn't enough for the woman I helped build. I started to wonder if I'd imagined the whole thing, the partnership, the love, the promises. One Thursday afternoon, I stopped by the boutique to surprise her with lunch. I'd taken my break early, thinking maybe we could eat together like we used to, maybe spark something. I walked in carrying her favorite sushi, still warm. The boutique was spotless, glowing with filtered light. Jazz played in the background. Melissa stood near the register, laughing at something her assistant had just whispered. When she saw me, the smile dropped from her face like a curtain. "Oh," she said, voice flat. "You didn't text?" Her assistant looked between us, awkward, then quietly stepped into the back. I held out the lunch. "Thought I'd bring you something." "You've been skipping meals." She barely glanced at the bag. "That's not from the organic place, is it?" I blinked. "No, but I can't eat that. I have a collab shoot later." My face gets puffy. I stood there, holding that stupid bag like a kid with a crayon drawing. Then, in front of a customer browsing nearby, she said it, "You really can't show up here unannounced. This is a professional space. You're not part of the brand." I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, my ears rang. When I finally left, I didn't take the sushi. I left it on her boutique's fancy marble counter like an offering to a god who'd stopped believing in me. That night, she didn't come home until after midnight. No explanation. No apology. Just walked past me and muttered, "You don't own me." And in that moment, I realized something brutal. Maybe I never did after that night. Something in me started to shut down. I stopped trying to win her over. Stopped bringing lunch. Stopped asking where she was going or when she'd be back. Melissa didn't notice. Or maybe she did and liked it that way. She moved through the apartment like a ghost who owned the place. Her nights out got longer. Her excuses got thinner. Brand meeting. Pop-up planning. Photo shoot prep. I nodded and stopped listening. The few times we were in the same room, it was like sitting across from a stranger. I missed the woman who used to light up when I brought her coffee, who'd trace store layouts on napkins while I massaged her feet. Now, she slept in the guest room. Said my tossing kept her up. She changed her passwords. Started locking her phone. When I asked about the late-night texts lighting up her screen, she laughed and said, "You're being insecure again." She started wearing this new perfume, expensive and unfamiliar. It smelled like crushed berries and something colder underneath. And it wasn't for me. One night I came home early from a canceled shift. As I walked in, I heard her laughing in the living room. A soft, flirty laugh I hadn't heard in months. She was on the phone, twirling her hair. "No, he's at work. He won't be back for hours. Trust me." I didn't walk in. I stood outside the door and stared at the wood grain while something cracked inside my chest. I didn't confront her, not yet. I just backed away, quietly, like a man leaving a room that was already on fire. But even then, some stupid part of me still hoped, still believed maybe this was a rough patch. It wasn't. It was the beginning of the end. It was a fluke. That I found out. One of my clients at the garage, a talkative guy named Steve, mentioned his wife was supplying some high-end shelving to a new boutique. Said he'd just done a delivery there last week. When I asked which store, he said, "That fancy place on Rowley Avenue. Run by that sharp girl. Melissa something." My stomach sank. Then he added casually, "Nice setup. Her and her business partner got it laid out like a gallery." Business partner. Yeah, some guy, slick designer type. Think he's a silent investor or something. Real cozy with her. That night, while Melissa was in the shower, I searched the boutique's Instagram. I scrolled through the posts, soft lighting, high fashion, curated captions. And then I saw him, Tyler, smiling beside her during a launch dinner, arm grazing hers. Hashtag teamwork, hashtag growth partners. He was never mentioned. Not once. My hands shook. I dug deeper, cross-referenced vendor receipts, old emails. Even the business registration we filed when we first started planning. Melissa had quietly changed the business license 6 months ago. Her name and Tyler's were on it. Mine wasn't. I stared at the screen, numb. While I was selling off my life to fund her dream, she was carving me out of it, piece by piece. I didn't sleep that night. Melissa came out of the shower humming, wrapped in a towel. She didn't notice me sitting there in the dark, laptop open on the table. She walked right past me like I wasn't even there, and maybe. To her, I wasn't. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I waited, sat at the kitchen table like a man rehearsing a eulogy. When Melissa walked in, dressed in one of her sleek beige jumpsuits, sipping an overpriced smoothie, I said, "We need to talk." She didn't even flinch, just sighed. About what now? I turned the laptop around, pulled up the registration, then the Instagram post with Tyler, then the vendor invoice with his initials. I said, quietly, "You lied to me." She stared at the screen for a moment, then looked up calm, like I'd just accused her of forgetting to do the laundry. "So what?" she said. "I needed someone who could actually help grow the brand." My throat tightened. "I gave you everything. I worked myself into the ground. I bled for this dream." Her voice sharpened. "Exactly. You were just the fuel. You didn't have the vision. You fix engines? You don't understand business." I could barely breathe. When I asked why she didn't just tell me, she laughed. "I didn't think you could handle it. You get emotional." I clenched my fists under the table. "You used me." Melissa stood up, wiped her hands on a napkin like she was done with the conversation. "Don't be dramatic. Everything's in my name. What are you even threatening?" She walked to the door, heels clicking against the tile. "Just accept it. You were helpful. That's all." And just like that, she was gone. That was the moment it all collapsed. Not the store. Not the marriage. Me, I sat there alone, still staring at the screen. Realizing I wasn't her partner, I was her stepping stone. After that day, I stopped reacting. No more arguments. No more late-night questions or desperate apologies. Melissa thought I'd finally accepted my place, but I hadn't. I was studying, watching, planning. I started collecting everything: screenshots, receipts, old bank transfers, voice memos of our late-night planning sessions, even text confirmations where she acknowledged I was funding the boutique. I got in touch with a lawyer, someone my cousin recommended, a quiet man with sharp eyes who listened without judgment. I laid it all out. The money I'd fronted, property I'd helped renovate, the materials I'd purchased on my credit. Every cent was accounted for. He leaned back and said, "It's not as airtight as you'd want. But if we can prove marital misappropriation of funds, there's a case." I nodded slowly. "I don't want to destroy her." He raised an eyebrow. "Then why are you here?" I didn't answer right away, because I didn't want revenge. I wanted recognition. Justice. Closure. Melissa, meanwhile, kept posting like nothing was wrong, showing off new lighting installations, going live with Tyler, talking about next stage expansion. She didn't notice I'd moved my things out of the bedroom, that I'd opened a new account under my name, that my paychecks were being redirected. She thought I was defeated, broken, but I was just quiet, and quiet men, when they finally move, don't shout, they strike. Melissa had no idea what was coming, while she flaunted her independent empire. I was tying legal knots behind the scenes. My lawyer helped me file a motion for financial tracing. Turns out, when you use someone's income to build a business even in your name, it leaves a paper trail, especially when that someone has every bank statement, Venmo, record, and screenshot to back it up. I filed for legal separation and asset division quietly. No shouting, no slam doors, Just papers served through a courier on a Thursday morning while she was sipping almond milk lattes with her influencer friends. I'd frozen the joint account too, days earlier. Redirected the utilities in my name to shut them off by the end of the month. And best of all, the boutique's initial security deposit lease and launch inventory were paid from my personal account. Legally, I meant I had a stake. My lawyer smiled when I showed him the receipts. She thought she covered her tracks, he said. But you funded her ladder? Melissa blew up my phone when the courier left. 22 missed calls. Voicemails ranging from fake tears to full-blown screaming. I didn't answer a single one. Later that night, she came home furious. You blindsided me, she yelled. I didn't yell back. I just handed her a folder with labeled tabs. Proof. I didn't blindside you, I said. You just didn't think I'd ever stand up. She tore through the papers, her hands shaking. You're going to ruin me. I stared at her for a long moment, then said calmly, You did that all by yourself. That's when her voice cracked for the first time. The power was slipping from her face like melting wax, and I hadn't even walked away yet. It didn't take long for the fallout to start. 3 days after the papers were filed, Melissa's silent investor Tyler pulled out. I heard through my lawyer that once he saw the financial tracing motion and potential legal exposure, he wanted no part in the mess. He withdrew all his funding and cut ties. Vendors stopped delivering. Word spread fast in our small city. The boutique's name was suddenly associated with fraud allegations, even though no formal charges had been filed. Suppliers demanded upfront payment. Her credit cards started getting declined. Melissa tried to reach me again, calls, texts, even voice notes begging for a conversation. She showed up at my garage one afternoon, mascara running down her face, hair a mess, no audience to perform for. I messed up, she whispered, voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I looked up from the hood of a car and wiped my hands. You didn't just mess up. You erased me. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. This isn't a scene, Melissa. It's an ending. That night, while she was out trying to salvage what was left of her brand, I packed the rest of my things. Took my tools, my documents, even the cast iron skillet I bought when we first moved in. I left the keys and one last folder on the kitchen counter. Inside was everything copies of the legal filings, breakdown of the settlement I was now claiming, and a handwritten note. You told me I wasn't a real man. Let's see how you do without one. When she came home and found it all, I was already gone. No fight. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just silence. And the sound of a kingdom quietly collapsing around its self-declared queen. The messages changed after that. The first week, it was all rage. Accusations. Voice notes laced with venom. You blindsided me. You ruined everything we built. You'll regret this. Second week. Her tone softened, pleading, crying. Please call me back. We can fix this. I miss us. But I didn't reply. Not once. The boutique shut down a month later. Legal pressure, unpaid invoices, and a shattered reputation will do that. I didn't take it all, just my rightful share. My lawyer made sure of it. She tried to fight it, of course. But the paper trail was against her. The day the court approved the settlement, I sat in my new apartment, small, quiet, mine, and just breathed. For the first time in over 2 years, I felt the weight in my chest begin to lift. I'd lost a lot. My money, my time, my trust. But I'd kept something more important. My self-respect. Melissa texted one last time. A long message about how she'd changed. How she saw everything so clearly now. Said she hoped I was happy. I didn't block her. I just never answered. There was nothing left to say. Some nights, still think about that man sitting at the kitchen table with takeout in his hands and hope in his heart. The guy who thought love was enough. I wish I could hug him. Tell him he's not crazy. He's not weak. He's just human. And he made it out, not with applause. Not with fire, but with quiet dignity. It's been 6 months. I still wake up early out of habit, but now there's no rush. No frantic double shifts. No pretending everything's fine while my life quietly bleeds out behind closed doors. I've opened my own small auto shop, nothing fancy. Just a 2-bay garage on the edge of town with a decent sign and loyal clients. I come home smelling like oil and metal, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. One afternoon, a woman brought her car in for brake work. Said her husband used to handle that stuff, but they'd split. She smiled, a little shy, and offered to bring coffee if I was still working when she came back. I smiled back. Not in a flirtatious way, just, human, I'm not rushing into anything. I don't need to, because now I know something Melissa never did. Real strength isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't come from titles, brands, or curated aesthetics. It comes from showing up every day, from loving someone enough to carry their dream, from walking away when they no longer see your worth. Melissa once told me, I wasn't a real man, but if building something from nothing, carrying someone else's dream, getting betrayed, and still choosing not to become bitter isn't real manhood, then I don't know what is. She built her empire on my back. And when she decided I was disposable, I didn't scream. I just took my spine back. And now, I sleep better. I laugh louder. I walk into my own shop every morning and smell the grease, hear the tools clanking, and know this is mine, and no one gets to take it from me again.